All right, we are live.
Awesome.
So,
Where should we start?
well, I guess we could start with the book or the video, if you guys want, whichever one.
We could start with the book.
Yeah.
Want to do the graphic organizer?
I did not.
I mean, they're pretty general questions that we can just talk about, I guess.
Okay.
Is
For
why
the study guide?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me get mine up. Oops.
So the first question is different from other forms of measurement.
Can you say that one more time? It kind of broke up on my end.
How is CBM different from other forms of measurement, right? Sorry, I'm just trying to open it.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
am I breaking up on the other end?
A little bit.
Yeah, just a little glitchy.
Okay.
It was like the things that it had talked about in the book were it's different because it aligns with the curriculum, which is different from other measures.
That
and the results were instant.
It targets the alterable variables too that can be changed with instruction.
Also, the efficiency of it being part of, since the measures are based on the curriculum, it's also very efficient.
Yeah, I really like I love how it's very simple, how simple it is, and the low inference measures makes it simple to use and user friendly, I think.
Have any of you guys ever used any of the CBM stuff?
I've done Dibbles, like the Dibbles Next program, to do progress monitoring for reading. And I mean, that was pretty effective. I used it with kindergartners, and it wasn't as helpful in getting the information, but I used it for fourth graders, and it was like you read a passage and you would like answer questions on the passage, and it had like different types of responses. And so it was pretty kind of similar throughout. And so you did the same thing in the beginning, and then you like tracked the progress, and it's all in this little booklet. And so you put the data on the front with the dates, and then you just open it up, and there's different passages, and you just go through, you read like 3 in the beginning to get like that initial data, 3 in the middle of the intervention, and then you 3 at the end, and you just can track it that way. And you can also add more if you want to take more data and do more progress monitoring than just the 3 steps, but that's how we did it when we used it. And it was super easy, and it does not take very long. It can be like 5 to 10 minutes, like if that. And then you have that data that you can look at easily.
I've used that easy CBM that they talked about. they have a free version, and then they have the one that you can pay for. And I use the free version with my high school kids.
Mm-hmm.
They give you cards to print out that has their password and everything, how to get in the computer. And so I just had Wednesdays. They had to take the test on Wednesdays whenever they could. But it was pretty easy too. Just it graphed everything for you. So
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's nice.
Yep. That's what I like about the commercial products, kind of easy to use. A lot of they can graph it for you, and there's not manual labor.
And I feel like that's one of the hardest parts with doing a lot of these is you have all this data and then going through and then making those graphs is one of the things that can take a lot longer. So it can deter you from wanting to do it. But when they make it really easy, that's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here it is, finally.
It's funny about is that we don't really do a lot of graphing where I'm at. So
Yeah. Now
I also put that CBM as
What?
criterion,
mm-hmm.
Which is different than a lot of norm-based assessments.
Right.
And I thought that it was interesting because it talked about how it like emphasized that it's not an informal assessment and that even though it can feel like an informal assessment, that it is the empiric wow, I can't speak empirically in practice.
I'm gonna say EBP.
Yes. That works. And so that's pretty cool because it doesn't feel like it. Whereas some of the other tests that you can give kind of feel like you're doing a lot more. And it kind of, when you're giving it, it's different.
It's cool because the material you give the student for the assessment is the material they've been working with the whole time. Like it doesn't really feel like, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here and I have to take a test. Like,
and that probably makes students feel more confident too. Like, oh, I've been learning this. I can do this instead of why did you put this in front of me? I'm going to shut down and I can't do it. So that's a good point. Let's see.
So, I mean, do you guys want to kind of use the points, like talking points from the study guide?
That'd probably be good.
Okay. The next one is how does CBM relate to MTSS and RTI? And so I know in chapter 1, I believe there was a section on it.
Yeah, it's on page 9.
Yeah. And so it's about like mastery of performance goals, kind of how it's things that are similar, and then but the fact that it uses alterable variables, and those can be changed with instruction, and that's what CBM uses. If I'm reading what I wrote right.
So it's not focusing on unalterable variables, so like IQ and things that can't be changed with instruction. And so that data that you're getting is really used for RTI decisions and for progress monitoring and universal screening.
So to answer the question, the CBM relates very closely to both MTSS and RTI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. When we talk about, because when you're looking at RTI or that, it's the decision making, and that's where, especially talked. I think it was in chapter 2. Was it that talked a lot about the ability to use CBM for good decision making data.
Yeah, they had a really awesome paragraph about. Let's see if I can find it. Using good data to make good decisions. So if you don't have
right,
you don't have good data, you can't make good decisions. Or they just worded it really awesome. Yeah, on page 20. And
so
then,
simple, but so informative.
yeah.
And I feel like as I was reading this, like one of the things that was like kind of reassuring is that in like different classes that we've had in different conversations and then just being in the classroom, a lot of this stuff seemed really familiar and really kind of, I'm seeing these things in the classroom and I'm seeing different things being implemented and it all already kind of makes sense. Like I'm, looking at, we've talked about that before in another conversation about something. And, so that was kind of cool, like going through like outcome measures and different things. Like we've been talking about all of these in like different conversations and stuff. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it does. It aligns. Yeah.
And like for me, oh, sorry, you can go.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, like, for me, it does make sense, but I really haven't had the opportunity. So for me, it doesn't align as much. So I hope that I can use a CBM sometime this year, just to like get that to click in my mind a little bit more.
I kind of relate to that too. One of the questions though, if so, how have you seen it aligned with what you've read? In my classroom, we don't use it. I guess we can get to that, but
yeah.
All right. And then, does anyone have anything else related to that question?
No.
All right, let's move on. Are curriculum-based measures standardized tests?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I had.
Right.
On page 23, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made a note on 20 to look back to 23.
They may not necessarily feel like a formal, like standardized test, but I mean they are developed to a set of norms and being would thus make it standardized.
Yeah, and that's the
criterion.
That's the beauty of it, because it's easy to train your staff to use it standardized. It doesn't take away from a lot of instruction time. But it also doesn't feel like an ISAT or like a standard, like a.
Yeah, I mean, we've had kids get kind of pulled to the side for. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
We've had kids that have gotten kind of pulled to the side to do just progress monitoring and with the one-on-one that they're with, and they'll get, stay after school for, 5-10 minutes with the teacher. She'll go over how to do it and implement it. And then she'll give it and then show the one-on-one how to do it. And then they can just kind of, if we're doing something else, they can just pull the student to the side for, however long and then get that done. And then that way you have it and then can move on to something different if you need to.
So, Julia, when you give a CBM to a kid, does, like you say, it can be 5 or 10 minutes long. Does it depend on like what subject you're assessing, or does it like depend on the actual test that you're giving for the length?
I think it's both.
Okay.
I know for the dibbles, and it can also depend on the kid, because I did it with one girl, and this was when I was doing the dibbles, and I did it with one girl, and she, flew through it, and she was done in, I want to say, less than 10 minutes. And then there was another girl who, a lot of attention issues, and so it ended up taking a bit longer. There were a lot of distractions.
That makes sense.
And stuff like that. So, and it can depend on what test you're giving them too. There could be other difficulties that they're experiencing with it. So it's kind of like that importance of finding the right test to give them, the right progress monitoring tool. And then, it can really depend on the student, on the test, on, a variety of things.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
that
think
makes
high school
sense.
students would have them done in about 3 minutes.
Right?
Yeah,
Get
my
this
girls
out of
were
my
like
face.
7.
I'm done.
They liked the one-on-one. They're in like the 3rd grade, and they're like, "Pull me out of class longer."
That was me. That was me.
Yeah,
as a
high schoolers are not like that.
I was like, be thankful for that. That's funny.
Right. So what makes this important for teachers, I guess? Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I think a lot of it goes back to just being standardized, but not like the standardized the kids are used to hearing. That it's standardized. You know, they make such a big deal about the ISATs all the time, and make sure you get a good night's sleep, and make sure you eat breakfast and all this stuff. But when
Which like psychs them out.
you know, it's just a little let's go hang out in the hallway for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that makes it easier for teachers to get that information and have it probably be more valid than others.
Right. And especially since you're assessing more often. You know, this EDM is made to assess more frequently too. So they're used to it kind of.
I think also it kind of just makes sense to, you know, assess on what it is that you're actually teaching, and you know, drawing from the same pool of information. So, you know, I think it is important just because, you know, there's so much that you can, like I said, streamline and simplify and get more frequent data points on. And particularly for the IEP progress monitoring.
Well, and it sounds like it's just really convenient. Like you guys were saying, if you need to pull your kid over for 10 minutes, you don't have to take the whole class period. Like you can go here and there depending on their schedule and your schedule. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, and I don't know with some of them if there is a specific like time frame, like if they want a specific amount of weeks to have passed in between. That's something that I guess we haven't really talked about too much, is if the frequency is specific to tests, specific to subjects, specific to ages, or how long the periods need to be. If it's 3 weeks, if it's 5 weeks, if it's, you know, however long, or 1 week, you know, when you're doing all the different progress monitoring, what, like if that's part of the standardization, if it's with the test or not.
Right. So like, does the teacher create that, or does the CDM, the commercial products list that specifically? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah,
A lot
that's
of
what I
times they'll
was
come
wondering.
predated.
Predated.
Oh.
Yeah, like you put October 12th in, then it'll date it for November 12th, December 12th. And then if you do the in-betweens, then it'll just show up in between those.
Okay.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, that is really nice.
Yeah.
Can help keep you accountable, keep you on track.
Right.
And I just thought one of the points that I had marked down was just that how they highlighted that it's not an instructional method, but it's in a tool for improving instruction. So it's not a curriculum or an instructional method or intervention, but it's a way to improve on that instruction. And I thought that was just like a good thing for teachers to know. You know, it's not like we're implementing this new program per se with the students, but you're using this tool to help.
Which in the long run is really better for you as a teacher.
Right. I liked how at the beginning it said, like on page 1, it was like, this is not an additional thing to do, it's an alternative.
Right.
And then they gave a really good comparison, the traveling, you know, traveling across.
Right. We're not making the same.
Well, why would you travel, or why would you assess twice to make one decision?
I like that analogy.
I like that,
Yeah, I'm kind of curious as to how it's going to apply just in terms of, because I mean, if you have curriculum-based measurement, then you know, how exactly do you choose the curriculum, and how does it tie to the curriculum that you're using, depending on what that is. I think I'm kind of curious as to see how that's going to work out as we learn about this.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question for you guys. On page 4 at the very bottom, on our other book that we're reading for book club, it talks about how CBAID is really used more for figuring out how to teach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or what? But in the book here, and then it also mentions in our book club book how CBM is more for what to teach. But in here it says CBM data can be used to decide what to teach.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was an interesting kind of contrast.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're kind of using different like research or
Right.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Like in our book club book, it was saying the opposite of that kind of, right? Am I right? Or am I, maybe I'm thinking of something else. There's a lot of things we've been reading. Maybe not.
No, I think in both cases, talking about CBMs as being a decision-making tool.
Okay.
In terms of what, not necessarily. Okay, now I think I see. Now I'm trying to explain it. I think I see where you're coming from. That it's not a method, but it's still playing a part in the decision making. I think is still what it comes down to, really. For
Okay,
both.
that makes sense. Yeah. I get it.
And then I don't know if you guys have used iReady at all with your students, like the iReady tests. Because those I were wondering, because it talked about a couple different programs that are the CBM methods, and I didn't know, because I know that we use iReady, and I wasn't sure if that was a CBM program or not. Not my kids particularly. I'm not entirely sure, and that's why I was wondering, because they do it in the general education classroom that my student goes into during the day, but she is not at a point where she can take them. Like, I think she is not eligible or something like that. But the students take these iReady tests. And I didn't know and they're like all on the computer. They kind of sit with headphones and they can like listen to the questions and they have to answer these questions. They're for like reading and math. And I think the two that their class did was for reading and math. And I think they took like a half an hour. So I know they were a little bit longer, but I know that the class took them like 2 weeks ago. And so I just wasn't sure what I just didn't know if anybody else knew them or knew.
I've never heard of them.
No.
Okay.
Maybe we'll learn about it. I don't know.
Maybe.
Do they do STAR too? Is it like in place of a STAR program?
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
Maybe. Because, yeah, we don't use STAR with the kids. So I guess it might be.
Yeah, that would make sense.
It might be. I'm going to look into it. I'm going to STAR it.
So Chloe, you said you don't really use CBM in your classroom, right?
Not at all.
We don't either.
It sounds pretty beneficial. I don't know why we don't, but I'm not sure.
You can always go to Easy CBM because, like I said, there's a free one that you can look into.
Okay.
So, like, I have 8 students who all have different IEP goals. So is that even like, I mean, every single goal of theirs is different. We don't teach one, I mean, each child doesn't have anything that's some even remotely similar.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, I mean, a few things like some comprehension goals, but I feel like it would be a lot of work to use CBM for all of those, every single IEP goal for every student.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Like, it would be, I
Yeah.
don't even know how we would use it.
It probably
Yeah,
takes
no,
some
I
time
get
in
what
the
you're
beginning.
saying.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because all of the data is all of our stuff is like teacher made data sheets.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's inputted into the computer. It's very by hand. It's because everything is so for each kid. I don't know.
I mean, because we have our kids all have their own binders, and they all
Yeah,
have like that's where you like track their IEP goals,
Mm-hmm.
and you can work on their
like
own specific like sight words and certain math skills and stuff like that. Um, so I guess, but yeah, I guess seeing in the beginning, like you were saying, and then going from there and taking that data would be like a way to do it. But you'd have to
yeah,
like kind of plan things out earlier on.
right. That would make
Mm-hmm.
sense. Yeah, to start early.
Yeah, because I mean, the other question is, I mean, so where are you getting your progress monitoring data from currently?
Right. So, I mean, I guess we're just using the data that we take every single day on their IEP goals, just the data that we get.
Okay.
I would say that we definitely need to step up our progress monitoring
Mm-hmm.
skills, but we take data every single day, so it's nice to have those.
Right. So if you did something like CBMs, that could, like, in the first place, take some of the place of that progress monitoring, and also serve other functions well. So like you said, you're not doing the same thing twice. It's an alternative to that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the things that we're struggling with too is that there's certain things that they want us to do every day with the student that I work with, but between kind of all of her physical accommodations and, having to go in her walker and doing her stretches and stuff like that. So her physical needs, and then having her spend time in her fourth grade class where she's doing that kind of work and getting that time with them. And then like going in for resource instruction. They're just, we were talking today was just absolutely crazy. And, we kept saying, there's just not enough hours in the
Mm-hmm.
day because we can get through like maybe half of the sight words that we're supposed to. And then she just is exhausted. And half the time I'm like, I don't blame you. You've been walking and,
Mm-hmm.
we're just working you like crazy. You have so much on your schedule and you're
Mm-hmm.
8.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with there not being enough time in the day. So I'm in a resource room, and for fifth period, we have 11 students between me and my mentor teacher. And exactly, right? So I'm bouncing around like math, English, biology,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like there wouldn't be enough time for these kids to even have 10 minutes for me. So
Mm-hmm.
we just need more time in the day, which I know there's not, but
Yeah.
it can get crazy.
And just like
I have a student.
situations.
Oh, totally. We've had to do already 3 room clears this year for
Oh,
at least a month.
We've had
So
3
that
this
takes.
week.
oh my gosh.
Okay, then there you go.
This whole week has been just, we got a new student and we've had to spend, I think the other day we had to spend half the day out of the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
Right. Just go with the flow.
Yep.
hmm That's hard.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I
and
can completely
using
understand.
the room clear, you could use that data from the room clear to help you make decisions, to hopefully help you next time. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a tough week.
But
um
So I just got back from my son's teacher parent conferences, and they use. Have you ever heard of MobyMax?
I've heard of it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently, I don't know the age level on it, but apparently they have to go through and there's math and English and stuff like that, but they have to do lessons to earn game time on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So that would be something that some of those kids maybe could do independently while you're working with another student.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see.
That's true.
Yeah, I have a hard time sometimes when I have two students that I'm working with, but they both need one-on-one. So it's like one student sometimes being the other student, but I'm not hitting one of their goals. And it's like, what can you do right now? And being short on staff sometimes. Topic, but
Right.
lots of things.
I guess the last thing that I had kind of written down and mentioned was that on page 30, for connections for like for me as a future teacher, how it relates to IEP writing and goal writing and objectives, and using the information that you get from that progress monitoring and incorporating that into goals. Because I know that, that can be you have all this data and then, okay, now how can I translate this into a student's goals? So I thought that little section was pretty cool. And I'd highlighted that because, for looking at it and what I can use and from this section, I thought that was like really helpful.
Definitely. And then also with this, it's over time. So like if you have an IEP meeting coming up, you don't have to scramble and, probe and do all these things within these 3 weeks of the time that you have before the IEP. But with this, it's like over time and you can have the information.
Right. That's a really good point.
I've seen that before, and it's stressful and
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and with some of those programs, I think you can probably bring like the nice pretty graph that they print out with the aim line and the trend line. And obviously that's going to help set the goals.
Definitely.
Right. Make it easier on you. Yeah,
because we just had like an IEP that need to get together in like 2 weeks, and it came from the Amarillo School District in Texas, and the kid has like speech. His needs and for his eligibility are in speech and in behavior, but on his IEP there's still goals for reading, math, for everything, but there's goals, but there's no present levels. And so we have no idea where these goals came from or what they're based on at all. So, we have to get all these present levels to put together in an IEP in a couple weeks, and that's not been fun.
Right.
Yeah. We've just been getting so many new students and just in the life skills class. So it's been really tough. And some of them, they're from out of state, and, we're still waiting for one of the students, the rest of his IEP to come in, because it came with like some of it and then just not the rest. Where is it?
We have part of
We had
the whole plan. Okay.
We had a student who his IEP didn't come in. They wouldn't send it. And he's been in a resource room for like 2 weeks and definitely needs to be in an extended resource room. And so it's just been such a struggle for him. But since we didn't have his IEP, it was like, we don't really know where you belong, but we'll see when we get your IEP. But in the meantime, I hope you're doing okay.
That's hard.
Right. So if you could just pull the CBM data, then that would take a lot of that struggle out.
Oh, yeah. And then you have other students that have been in the school. I mean, we have a 5th grader who's been there since kindergarten, and we have so much data on him and over the years. And, the teacher can walk into a meeting and just have like charts and all of this stuff. So it's it's a lot more difficult too when you have someone who's kind of bopping around and moving around, because those changes make it harder to get that consistent data and information.
That's a really good point. Like sometimes it's not even the students or the clerks that it's like you have to be reliable.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't.
Well, and with everybody using such different tests, I mean, you could get a Lexile score that means nothing to you, or you can get a great equivalent that you can maybe do something with. I mean, there's just so many things, and it comes in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What else? I think that was everything from the book.
Excuse me.
How are we on time?
We're almost at 40 minutes.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the video? I thought it was pretty straightforward with all the stuff we've already learned.
Yeah, it was it was a really good recap.
Yeah.
Like
And
a
it was
review.
cool. I like to be able to hear it from the school district's, point of view. That school district, Philadelphia or Pennsylvania. Maybe.
Yeah. And it was nice to see like parts of an actual meeting, of a core team meeting, just to see what that was like.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To an RTI meeting.
Mm-hmm.
It was really interesting when I went. I enjoy hearing the other side of like the counselors, the psychologists, I love hearing what they think of this story. It's nice to hear it rounded out, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of sounds like a core team. Is that similar to an IEP team then? Like they sound like they're really similar.
I would say so.
Just like
we have like MDT meetings at our school every Wednesday, and I started sitting in. It's the multidisciplinary team meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So it has like the counselors, all the special ed teachers, the principal.
I've done that too. Yeah.
OT, PT. So that whole everyone together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd never heard it called the core team either, so I guess I had that same thought as if it was an IEP team, or I mean, an MDT team is quite a bit different than an IEP team. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just like the overall purpose is different.
Mm-hmm.
So
anything else? I feel like we covered it pretty thoroughly.
Yeah.
I like this book. I like how it's easy to read.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not so technical,
Yeah.
And it's all like
informal.
very relevant. Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, Spark. So. All right. Well, are we all good?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome.
Well, thanks, guys.
All right. I'll attempt to send it. And then if not, I'll pass it on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good talking to you guys again.
Yeah.
All
All right.
Have a good night.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.